All right, today we have another episode from the archives with one of my incredible guests. Enjoy. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast, a show about the incredible people dedicated to helping those who've experienced trauma. My name is Guy McPherson, and my mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to inspire each of us to help those around us. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson, and this is a podcast where we interview master trauma therapists from all over the world, people passionate about what they're doing, specializing in trauma therapy, and making a difference. If you're a trauma therapist or if you're just interested in trauma therapy, this is the place. Today, I am so excited to introduce my guest, Gerald West. Gerry, you ready to go?
I'm ready, Guy. You bet.
All right. So Gerry is a veteran of the U.S. Army and is a licensed independent social worker. He currently provides counseling through military OneSource and TRICARE to individuals, couples, and families, and supervises students and professionals for licensing requirements. In addition, Gerry's also an organizer, consultant, and trainer at Southern New Mexico Integrative Health Services Alliance, where he serves warriors, vets, and their families. I'd also want to include here that formerly Gerry served as a senior social worker for the premier U.S. Army Warrior Restoration and Resilience Center in Fort Bliss, Texas. So Gerry, I've told our listeners just a little bit about you. Take a moment, share with us something personal about yourself to help us get to know you better.
Well, I've been interested in community mental health for a long time. I started a community mental health center in Pittsburgh in 1970 to 74, where we started developing these integrative and holistic health practices. Unfortunately, around 1973 and 74, communities started closing their mental hospitals because of the horrendous treatment that patients were being received in these cuckoo's nests. Many of us have seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I also had the good opportunity to experience that firsthand as a consultant for the Athens Mental Hospital, called Athens Mental Health Center. So I saw how horrendously these people were being treated by psychiatry. And when they were dumped from the mental hospitals, they dumped them right into our community health services. Psychiatry came in with their labels and drugs, took over our community mental health systems of Pittsburgh, where I was located, and just destroyed all the good health practices that we were doing in the community that I'm starting to get back with now as I'm working with these injured warriors. So my experience goes back quite a ways, and I have personally experienced such pain and suffering by these psychiatric therapists who only desire to label and drug and code the patients that came into our service centers, and we never did that before. We never labeled people. We never had to put them on record, and where they lose their privacy and confidentiality with the insurance industry, for example. So I'm just honored to be able to work with these soldiers and their families. And I was in the most remarkable health service center ever developed under John Fortunato's leadership at Fort Bliss. So I had the good fortune there to really work with over 200 injured warriors and families and see them recover successfully as long as they were receiving integrative and holistic health services intensively and extensively, Guy. Those two words have to go together, extensively and intensively, because every injured warrior and family had been injured to the core, intensively and extensively. The whole body, mind, spirit, emotions, their relationships are totally endangered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you're speaking my language, sir. Intense and extensive. Let's get into that in a short bit, but share with us something personal about you. Where are you living? Let's hear something about that.
Okay. Well, I live in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I was brought here. I started the social work program in Rio Grande University in Ohio, and I was there 3 years. And my kids started speaking Appalachian, and the schools were suffering where we were. So we decided to search, and New Mexico State University brought me in to help develop their social work program at the undergraduate and graduate school levels, and had the good fortune to do that. and learned about the community and grassroots, and became I think, a pretty effective community organizer and organizing communities for right action, so to speak, to serve humanity, to serve people in a healthy, responsible, respectful way. And so I've been here 35 years. My wife passed in November. We'd been together 52 years.
Wow.
And we had a wonderful time together, and we have 2 children. My daughter's a senior social worker in the Denver public schools with 3 grandchildren, and my son's one of the finest Shakespearean actors in the country, and he's leading Shakespeare in the Sea programs in Southern California right now.
Wow. Well, Gerry, thanks so much. I mean, there's just a warmth in your voice that I'm certain comes out in the care you provide. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Well, thanks for your sensitivity, Guy.
Well, you're welcome. So let's use this to move to our next topic, which is the quote. This podcast, the Trauma Therapist Podcast, is about getting to know you, the master trauma therapist, better. In order to do that, we want to get to know and hear what's inspired you along your journey, what's compelled you to pursue this path. So share with us, if you will, a quote or a mantra, something that's inspired or helped you, drive you on in your personal journey.
Well, I think I can identify at least 2 or 3 resources. One of them was Dr. Claudio Naranjo. He's a great psychologist and psychiatrist. He wrote The One Quest, and in the early 70s, we formed what's called Seekers After Truth. And the whole idea was to learn about how we can be the truth, so to speak. We can be what we are, but most of us were very confused. Who are we? What are we? Why are we here? We're always asking those deep questions, and we spent serious time together developing solutions, answers to those questions through practicing meditation. During that period of time, I also wanted to learn the body and mind inside and out, so I became a licensed massage therapist so I could safely and carefully and skillfully touch my clients and introduce them to safe, skillful, nourishing touch. So that's been one of my interests, because I just know that our society, we have right now a society of untouchables, so to speak. Schools put up red flags. They punish children and others for touching one another. They put them out of school. They drug them. Our systems are so failed, Guy. There's such a need for those of us who really care for humanity and social systems, because they're so broken. And so I had great opportunities to learn from the best people in the world, Claudio Naranjo, Oscar Chazo, who was a great Bolivian scientist. And I was initiated into the Tibetan medicine through Tartang Toku Rinpoche, who's a Tibetan Lama who first left Tibet when the Chinese came in, and he wouldn't be with us today. So he went to India and then came to the United States and trained those of us who were in mental health who wanted to learn Tibetan medicine. So I think that's the key to my health practices, is learning how to use all these different methods and approaches to the multiple injuries that our soldiers and families are experiencing today.
So you talk about humanity, talk about really developing touch, utilizing that in a safe way for the people who've been injured. Can you break it down for us? Get specific how you utilize that, maybe how you came to realize that this was really important for you.
That's really a good question. I think it probably evolved with my family development. We came from a lot of kids. My brothers were all in the service also. I have 2 of us were in the Army and 2 in the Navy, a submariner and a destroyer, and a couple of Army guys. And you don't do a lot of touching the military, but I was with 17 brothers over in France for 17 months, and we learned to dance together. We were just growing up, like 19, 20, 21 years of age, and then coming home. And I just feel like there has been something really missing in our lives when we're not touching. And I discovered when I was working with the mental health systems and YMCAs and other community organizations that people who are touched thrive. People who aren't withdraw. It's so obvious. Yesterday, I met with a soldier who, it goes right back to their early development too, Guy, because for him, example, he told me his mother detests him because she was raped and he was the result. And he went into the Army. He served 7 years. He was a good soldier. But when he came out, he had no place to go. He turned homeless. No one was responding to him. He was just a lost soul because his mother, he lost it, of course, didn't have a father, so he didn't have any place to go. And I've noticed that people, when they're kind of lost in time and space, if we can just do some laying on of hands, just put our hands on their shoulders and breathe together and unite us, and the ground, we need to ground these energies too that they come back with. They're so stressed to the max that there's no self-control or self-relaxation. They don't really know how to survive these enormous stressors that hit every system. So I'm so grateful for touch because, the soldiers trust somebody who touches them safely and skillfully. And I love giving facial massages so they can feel their face after they come back from war because they're just so stressed. I love giving deep, and I have several partners now who come into our meetings, and after we're done, they'll go get their body massage, they'll get their Reiki sessions, they'll get their acupuncture. And at the end of that day, they feel like they can't remember when they felt so good. So these are really helpful tools, Guy. I don't know how else to say, but they're so important to those of us serving our injured warriors and their families, and teaching them touch also so that they can, there's a difference when you're touched physically and you're touched mentally and you're touched emotionally. And I consider spiritual touch as like a form of meditation that integrates the physical, mental, and emotional conditions of the human being. So when we're calming everything down and all the cells are working together, the nervous system, the senses, everything is working, they heal and recover. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if they're given drugs, pills, and psychic labels for life, we can count on them developing that, what I consider the VA shuffle.
Well, Gerry, I think you're speaking some very kind of important and profound words here. And I think a lot of our listeners who are, beginning trauma therapists or even therapists with more experience are probably thinking, as I am, that touch and veterans somehow don't go together, it's an oxymoron. I mean, just in and of itself, we're constantly hearing how difficult it is for veterans to get the care they need, to get the therapy they need in and of itself. And then you're bringing in this whole concept of touch, which is obviously so profound. How do you navigate that as well?
You're absolutely right. It seems incongruent with the military because, if anything, there's been a lot of bad touch going on in the military. And a lot of that, Guy, has been because they haven't gotten the proper orientation early in their military careers. Well, I served as the Fort Bliss stress management health promotion trainer for 25 years while I was teaching at New Mexico State University. And every week I'd go in and work with the soldiers on introducing and having them come in with their couples and their families and teaching them how to touch, that this is how important it is to touch and learn to touch, because nobody's teaching how to touch. They're only setting up rules to have no touch. I see it as a holistic perspective because touch connects with all the being. When we touch something, it's our first basic human need requirement coming out into the world. We reached out we couldn't see, our other senses are all in the developmental stages. So touch is the most important coming out thing we have. And so I kind of identify that with our soldiers coming home when they're coming out back into a society that has forgotten them and doesn't know what to do with them, and they don't have any kind of serious plan for their health, except drugs, labels, and not the proper resources. So we returned 50% of our injured warriors at the Fort Bliss R&R Center the first 2 years back fit for duty. The first 2 years we were in operation. And it was just remarkable because every soldier, 40 hours a week for 6 months, received intensive touch, massage, acupuncture, Reiki therapy, yoga, therapeutic outings, the whole works to help us heal and recover and restore this veteran. And it worked. Mm-hmm. But then the drugs started coming in. The prescribers started coming into the center. I was coordinator of water polo. And, hey, Guy, there's a good example of touch. These guys in the pool were wrestling with each other for the ball, and it was more to get that touch and wrestling and that physical contact with the brothers they love so much that they would literally, you could see a group hug going on for several minutes. Right. We didn't blow any whistles. Right.
That sounds awesome. I mean, your experience and these stories are just coming out, and I think everyone can hear that there's so many more, and you have just such a wealth of experience. But let's move on here. This is about highlighting your journey to becoming a master trauma therapist. People enter into this specialization of trauma for very different reasons. For me, as I've spoken about a lot, it had to do with my brother being in the special forces and returning from the war with PTSD, and myself not knowing what to say. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to find out what was going on, but I was going about it in all the wrong way and really screwing it up. But tell us a story. Break it down for us, Gerry. What led you into this field of trauma and helping these vets?
That's a good question, and it's probably more subtle. I think probably when I heard about the Fort Bliss Restoration Resilience Center being the total health center for trauma, I'd worked with trauma all my life with other people and other trauma situations, automobile accidents, death and dying and all these things for years and years. However, they never should be equated. No trauma should ever be equated with war trauma. Hardly anybody in life is required to be stressed, anxious, and depressed for 24/7 for as long as the war's been going on. And I think the military's missed the point here, Guy, that these soldiers and these vets like your brother, they've been at war for 12 years, not just when they're deployed. When they come home, they never leave the war zone. Their brothers and sisters are still, many of them didn't come back. The war is with them forever. So we need to find some real comfort and loving and kindness and relaxation. Allow nature to take her course with our soldiers. Nature will be our greatest healer if we just allow ourselves to be one with her, so to speak, like her nature. If we can discover our true nature, we'll come out of our trauma. If we don't, we're going to be stuck in those dark, cloudy, isolated places. So it's more, I think, appreciation and my own personal experience. A lot of people ask me when they came to the R&R Center, they'd say, well, Gerry, you're 75 years old. Well, I may have been 74 then, and I'm 79 now. And they said, how can you do this day in and day out? And I said, I do it, but I go home every night and I cry. I don't understand it, but and then I finally learned I had compassion fatigue, whatever that is. And it just, we can only take so much before all of our systems get stressed to the max too.
Right.
So I really want to caution. John Fortunato called special meetings for us, and he told us, don't you guys work more than 2 years in intensive trauma units. It's just too painful and suffering. He did it in Chicago hospitals and other places, and he knew that. And so he guided us in there. I just stayed a little bit too long because I love those soldiers so much and want to work. And we just became brothers, and I still work with several that I started with about 5 years ago, that they still live in the area and they still want to participate. And now they're starting to, with all they've learned and how to help themselves, they're out helping others now, other veterans. So these are going to be our best trauma therapists in the future, I think, Guy.
So you said, Gerry, that you were interested in working in the trauma field even before you work with veterans. What was it that drew you? And you did mention previously that maybe it was subtle, but what was it that called you?
I think it was a calling, Guy, because I feel a real spiritual connection when I'm working with persons suffering the most in the world. And I was always attracted. Something inside me, and probably my spirit, was saying, go to the mental hospital and help those people. Go to the prisons. I was the first teacher in a maximum security prison in Pittsburgh. I just had to go in these places and see how these human beings are being treated. And mostly disrespected, disregarded, punished, harmed, without any personal caring. So there's so few of us, Guy, and I know you're like this too. I can hear it in your voice. So it's more of a spiritual thing. It's hard to know why, and I try not to ever use that too much because it's looking for a single solution often. And I think there's a multiplicity of interactions and relationships that get us into this. And I think I'm being guided and directed to our Creator. I'm a believer that we're all created and guided in this life too.
So I think that, there's a really good message here for our listeners, which is for those listeners who are maybe starting out on this journey or interested in trauma therapy, if there's a sense, a calling to honor that, to go with that and to go seek that and pursue that. That's great, Gerry. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Guy.
So we talked a little bit about your journey, what led you to the specialization of trauma. And, you, I think, pointed out that it's not a very easy question to answer. But let's focus now on an early clinical error you made and what you learned from that. Tell us a story about an early clinical mistake you made that had a significant impact on the work you did, what you learned from it, and how it's influenced you as a clinician.
I'd like to talk a little about this. I don't think he would even mind me mentioning his name. It's 35, almost 40 some years ago, 35, 30, yeah. This guy from New York City came into my mental health center and was looking for some way to withdraw from heroin. And this is good because all of our soldiers have to withdraw from all those chemicals and stuff if they want to get better. But I just learned so much from him because he says he wants to do this, and people can have the desire to change, but I had to bail him out of prison 3 different times in the 3 years I was working with him. And the third time I find it could be a mistake, but maybe it wasn't. I said, I'm sorry, Louie. I've just had it with you. You say you want to get better, and you don't. You go steal some more stuff for your heroin, and all the bells are going off in all the stores in Pittsburgh. So this is the last time I'm bailing you out. You either clean yourself up totally, or you go find somebody else to work with you. And I love you kindly, but this is it. So I think then that was his kind of my last straw with him and his last straw with me. And he gave up his cigarettes, went to massage school, and became a great massage therapist. So I learned so much from him too. But we do make mistakes along the way, which led me to believe, not even believe. I don't even want to believe anything anymore. I just want to experience it. But if we have a self-care plan, and I require that of all of our soldiers, and I don't know of anyone else who does this, but I'm encouraging other trauma therapists to do it for that reason that I just gave. If they develop a daily self-schedule to work on their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual and social relations, and work that into a self-care plan, have a support group, have an advocate at their side, like I was with Louie, and work your way through this pain and suffering, and you will if you commit and have a plan. And commitment requires, I ask them to stand up and raise their right hand. I'm committing myself to be the best I can be. I will become the best I can be. I just ask him to say that. And Guy, I also have a mirror in a big mirror in my room, and I ask him to stand in front of that room and you show me when you were at your highest spirit as a warrior. Show me that warrior inside. Show me that warrior. And they do. And when they do, they're shocked because it's inside them, and that's them. They never lose who they really are.
Wow. Gerry, I'm thinking about how I'm going to get to New Mexico. I want to come see you.
Okay. I'd love to come to.
That's what's going through my mind right now. I mean, there's just something, I think profound is kind of overused, but, and it's not simply a warm heart, and it's not simply wanting to care. But in addition to that, I think what's coming through is this searing experience that you have that's been honed, and that really speaks to what it means to be, a master in your field. That's coming out. It really is.
Your observation there, because it's hard to explain. I think you're right, though. It just comes out as our experience after a while. And I'm never going to retire. I don't think you will.
Yeah, I don't know. But regarding Louis, was it that you, quote unquote, gave up on him? Was that your error?
I thought it was at the time because I never wanted to I always swore I'd never give up on anybody. But in his case, I felt like my insight was right, and apparently it worked, because every other time he just kind of ignored it. And when he saw that there was nobody going to be there for him anymore, this has been and it's so hard to withdraw from cigarettes and cocaine and heroin. Those are third level compensatory behaviors. I teach all the soldiers about compensations too, that, there's only 4 relatively safe outlets, and I think every therapist ought to know that. And I learned that from Oscar Chazo, that we have 4 relatively safe outlets in a society that is so out of balance and out of tune. It's amazing everybody isn't a goner, because there's hardly any loving, kindness, sharing, touching. Everyone's kind of withdrawing into their own selves and their own groups. Anyway, there's food, sex, drugs, and work, and the military guys can't take marijuana. That's one of the best outlets to compensate for a stressed mind, body, mind, emotions. It calms it. And many have been kicked out of the Army for taking marijuana to help them with their serious injuries. They got to get it together here, because they better start giving medical marijuana to every soldier that wants it coming back from the wars. It's probably one of the best solutions to some of the serious suicides and serious injuries we're seeing, and the conflicts in the home. It's amazing any family can ever make it after these wars, Guy. They just so stressed, anxious, depressed. They don't know each other. They don't know themselves. They're so hurt.
Yeah, no, it's just true. And it's just something that we're being reminded of every day in the news, I think one of the reasons why I'm really excited to speak with you, because it seems like what you're doing is at once novel, but at the same time just makes so much sense. It seems common sense. This integrative, holistic treatment for warriors you're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not the norm, right?
No, it unfortunately is not. And there's very few behavioral health clinics inside and outside the military that even refer to us. And we have greater success in the integrative areas than they'll ever have in conventional medicine. We've seen it. I've seen it over the past 5 years with these soldiers I've been working with. I work with a soldier 15 hours a week. We do it in groups. We do it individually. We just expend lots of time together, because their whole being, we're all healing and recovering from these serious injuries. And they're injuries to the cellular formation. And I've learned a lot, too, about the body, that every system in the organism has a mind of its own. And this is what psychiatry and psychology and mental health doesn't get. For example, I don't know of any soldiers that come back who haven't had intestinal concerns. They should undergo intestinal cleansing when they come back from these putrid, toxic places like West Virginia. I'm sorry, my wife's from West Virginia, but I mean from the coal mines and but all these deployments, they've injured to the core, and our digestive system has a mind of its own. It has to be cleansed. Our cardiovascular system needs totally relieved of all the stress it's encountered. The nervous system is just so on red alert 24/7 when they come home, and they need every possible calming approach, but not the drug chemicals that cloud over their mind and make them unable to really interact and relate with others and themselves. Those chemicals those cocktails, and every soldier I've worked with, when they withdraw from them, they all got better. Those who didn't withdraw from them and stayed out of our groups and work, they're still suffering enormously. So I just know that if they give up their chemicals, work intensively and extensively, like we said, guys, they're going to get better. I've seen it. I had a medic who was on the Hidden Enemy talk by CCHR, put out that documentary. And they came from Switzerland to interview him and me about these trauma issues. And he had such great experience. For 5 years, he was suffering, taking 12 to 14 of these psychiatric meds, and he didn't know what was even happening. He didn't know who he was. He was put in a mental hospital, attempted suicide. He was rescued there, put back in a hospital. Finally, I got him, and he recovered. I got his family together with him. He was homeless. He was 5 years a Marine, 10 years as a medic, just one of our remarkable warriors and we should never let our VA and other resources weren't serving him whatsoever. They didn't know what to do. They just know how to drug and label. They don't know how to use touch and meditation and all these other health resources. One of my soldiers was similarly, he was a combat vet, enormously stressed. He swam 23 laps a day during our exercise program and cleansed himself through swimming. Some of them will find a special way. Some use horses and dogs, and there's so many outlets.
Wow.
We should use every possible. That's what I'm thinking. Our community should welcome home these vets with every possible health service, and so they can recover from 12 years of suffering. They've been suffering for 12 years, going inside, trying to find out how could they be so hurt? Because they've had to be 24/7 on guard, prepared to die.
Gerry, what advice do you have for people who want to get into this field? I mean, obviously you have so much experience and so much heart and so much feeling about this, but to our listeners, for those people maybe who are just thinking about getting into the field or maybe scared about getting into trauma, they don't know much, what would you say to someone? How would you advise them?
Well, first off, they've got to walk the talk or talk the walk, and they've got to have a self-care plan just like the soldiers that they work with. They've got to work out, work on themselves, all those systems. If they don't, they won't be trusted. And I've worked with a lot of therapists who called themselves trauma therapists, but many of them, they didn't listen. They would sit at their desk typing on their laptop everything the soldier tells them, so they're doing their business with the soldier rather than getting to know their clients and their patients and be honest and open and accepting and allowing them to be who they are without judgment, analysis, interpretation, and all those crazy things they learn in some of their academic programs. I think they got to give up those ideas of analyzing, interpreting, and judging, because only the injured warriors know what they've been through. We'll never know. We only know our own experience, and that's what I would tell a trauma therapist. Learn from your veterans. Learn from them. Listen to them. Don't judge them. Don't evaluate, analyze them. Just be present with them. Be kind. Listen. They know. They know if you're there just to do your business, and that's why they're not attracted to And what does a 1 hour session a week do for anybody anyway? It doesn't. I don't know, maybe that's just off the top of my head, Guy, but I think they've got to learn to engage their trauma persons, their injured warriors and others, as though they're their family, that this is your brother, this is your sister. Listen to them, care about them. They know. Hug them. I was always the first one to our center because I wanted to welcome them into the center every day when they came in. I wanted them to feel this is their home now, and I'm going to be in their home, and I'm going to be with them 24/7. Mm-hmm. So they call at 3 a.m. They're up on the mountain, forget where they are or something, you know. But it's the most complex, probably therapeutic job in the world. You just got to know, if you want to change somebody, stay out. Mm-hmm. But if you want to help someone, help them be a guide, listen, and be a resource. Learn about your community resources. Pull in other resources to help your clients. Make sure they get everything. A counseling session, a conventional counseling session, is like a venting experience. They could do that over a poker game or a beer. I don't think we ought to even think about sending these injured warriors to conventional practitioners. They're just a waste of beautiful humanity. I'm sorry.
So if you want to change somebody, stay out. If you want to help them, the door's open.
The door's open, and they'll know it too. Because they're so sensitive. They've been so injured. Every sense picks up every sound, every sense. They can smell what you've been eating for lunch. For reasons. I mean, everything has been stretched to the max. That's war trauma, and it's different than any other kind of trauma. I really don't like it when I see them put other trauma issues with war trauma, because there just isn't anything like it from all my 52 years of social work, professional practice.
So you're saying, as far as providing treatment or healing or help, war trauma is in its own category?
I think it has to be in its own category and requires an enormous amount of experience. And I think that's why Dr. Fortunato hired all of us who had at least 15 to 20 years experience. He didn't hire fresh people out of anywhere. I mean, and I think he was right about that. Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. You know, you've obviously got years of experience in this field. You've honed your ability to do this work. With the idea that each of us has different strengths, what do you think it is about you, about what you do, that enables you to do the work effectively? What do you bring to the table, in a sense?
I think of fearlessness. I'm not afraid of anybody or anything. I practice the martial arts, and I feel comfortable inside myself, and I practice meditation 3 to 4 hours a day, and I've been doing this for 35 years now, so I'm very comfortable with the practices and what's required of us to learn these skills so that we can pass them on with comfort and skill. I think every trauma therapist ought to learn body, mind, spirit work, they ought to learn the whole body, what's going on. Just getting mental health training isn't enough. They should get trained in every system. Mm-hmm.
That's clearly what's coming out in how you talk about the therapy that you deliver. It's obviously coming from this place of holisticness. Yes. It's obviously more than just psychological. It's mind, body, and spirit. And it's so exciting to hear, Gerry. I mean, I just think that our listeners are, if they're listening to this, if they're driving, they're just getting amped up, they're getting psyched, because it makes so much sense. And it cuts to the core of being in touch with each other, you know, caring about humanity, wanting to touch them. I mean, the whole topic of touch is so controversial. You know, I want to maybe, as an aside, touch on that for a little bit. How do you navigate that?
Well, I put some guidelines together And I hope people will visit my website because I have a whole program called Guidelines for the Safe Skillful Use of Touch.
And I'll have a link for that on the show notes page too.
So that we need to have that safety out there. Otherwise, we won't be trusted. So I let people clearly know very early on about these guidelines, and I posted them in my office, and everybody knows me, so they know I'm going to hug and touch everybody. I don't care who they are. I just know that's how we can relate and get the safety, security issues out there. One of the biggest fears we have is to touch. And two of my great teachers said, when we're afraid or when we experience fear, we're closest to the truth. So if we're afraid to touch, that means we're outside of the laws of nature, because everything in nature is touching us all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So that's kind of where I am with touch, and I just love it. I would never have a session without at least doing it, the laying on of hands. I love giving foot and hand massage to soldiers because they're hurt so bad. Mm-hmm. I love giving facials. I don't give any naked body touch or anything, and we have deep tissue massage work. My feeling, it's not a belief so much as an experience. I recovered from compassion fatigue because I got a deep tissue, almost like a rolfing session, every Saturday morning for the last 2 years. I was working in a trauma center, and it helped me recover enormously because I think we store our pain in our back and we can't get to it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Ourselves. We need help there.
Wow.
So that's what mommy and daddy did for us.
Right.
And if they didn't, those kids are suffering. I know so many of the vets didn't get the mother and the kindness of loving touch and healthy touch, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual touch in their lives. And then coming back from wars, a lot of this is new to them.
Right.
So we become their brothers. I think a lot identified with me as kind of their elder, and their grandparents, many raised by grandparents too. And there was a trust factor there. So I come in with some of that trust that helps me with the soldiers too, Guy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we'll have the link to that again on the show notes page, which is westcoasttraumaproject.com. You can hit on podcast, and Gerry's podcast, his show notes page will come right up. So Gerry, what's got you going right now in the present? What are you excited about now?
Oh, I'm starting to get organized so that we can tell what's happening. I went to meet with all the school social workers in southern New Mexico a couple weeks ago and introduced them to this whole trauma business of warriors coming back. And I told every social worker, and I think if the VA took on this kind of idea that everyone who walks in the VA is your responsibility. Everyone who comes in for help in your system is your responsibility. It's everybody who belongs to that system. They can't allow anybody in that system to not serve those people with the highest regard, respect, dignity, kindness, and knowledge, and wisdom and truth. They can't be faking. They got to be real and genuine and kind and learn how to engage their own family even. If they aren't doing well with even their own family, they shouldn't be engaging others. They should take a look at themselves. We got to clean our act up. And that's kind of where I am. I'm excited I want to stop kids from being put in detention centers. I want to stop them from what they do in our community. If they identify them with a psychiatric disorder, they send them to the mental hospital. They're put in a row, and some service person makes them sit and take their drug cocktails till they drool, and then they can go back to their rooms. That's how they're introduced to health in a mental hospital. No different from the ones I saw in 1970.
Right.
Hasn't changed at all. Psychiatry is humanity's killer. They're destroying lives every day that come into. It's so sad to see. These families have been suffering. I have this image when I'm working with a soldier that comes back from wars, the mother and her 2 little children are sitting in the back of the Humvee while their partner's in the driver's seat or up on the gunner, and they're sitting there holding their babies tightly and hoping nothing happens to daddy today. Mm-hmm. It's not imaginary. It's when the whole family's at war. They don't get it.
Yeah.
The whole family's been at war, all the families, and then they come home and the family's so mad they don't know what happened. They don't know how to come out of that grief and suffering themselves. They're not getting any kind of loving, caring attention. You're only getting drugs and labels. That makes me sick.
It's just, I think, so moving to hear you talk about this, and I think so many of us who are listening will definitely want to do something and definitely kind of reach out and get in touch with you, Gerry. So I think you can expect some emails.
Okay.
So can you recommend 2 go-to trauma books for our listeners which have had a major impact on the work you do?
I would like to recommend the books that I have on my website. Most of those I borrow from. I have a whole series of bibliography on my website.
We'll definitely have a link for that too.
Probably one of the most important books a soldier will ever get, if he's able, and not really hurt too physically, it's called Psychocalisthenics. It's pcals.org. It's a 23 yoga-type positions and postures, all coordinated with the breath, that produces strength, coordination, balance, and flexibility, and it restores all those. Mm-hmm. And I've adapted that series of exercises for the soldiers, along with some Qigong in our touch programs, and especially meditation, different forms of meditation. Calming the body, mind, and spirit is so essential. And then keeping a dream journal, following their self-care plans. And I especially appreciate Tartang Toku Rinpoche. He had a book called Gesture of Balance. He's written 23 books, but he's trained American therapists in Tibetan medicine. And I feel like that's my primary guide. Tartang Toku Rinpoche, any one of his books is going to serve as meditation books. I used them in teaching my holistic classes at New Mexico State for years, and the students loved them. They all left school feeling better about themselves. My idea, no one should ever come to us, Guy, whether it's an individual, group, couple, or family, and not feel that they're a better person when they leave us, because they've learned something from us that's honest, open, accepting, and allowing, and we're not showing off. We're not trying to push anything on them or force them to do anything, but they recognize we have some tools, and they call them tools. And I'm glad, because if they have these tools, they're going to get better.
Yeah.
Talk won't be enough.
The book you mentioned, Just Your Balance, was that it?
Mm-hmm.
Just Your Balance? Okay. So
yeah,
we'll have a link to that on the show notes page as well.
Oh.
Gerry, thank you so much. I mean, this has been incredible.
It's been incredible for me too, Guy. You're such a good, kind interviewer. I mean, I just feel like I could talk to you forever. You're definitely a trauma therapist.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, Gerry, you've just been so kind with your time, with your energy, with your experience. Thank you so much, and we will talk soon.
Oh, thank you, Guy. I really appreciate the opportunity, and you've been such a great interview. I really felt comfortable with you. You know how to engage soldiers, I know. And I'd love to meet your brother sometime, too.
Well, that might happen.
Okay.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
Bye.
Bye.